Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 381 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, my good man Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing good, Joe. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. That is the truth. Let's dive straight into part one. We're going to start, of course, with the review part of the show. One card that took place last Friday at the Quiet Cannon Country Club in Montebello, California. Over here, it was a Tom Loeffler show. Just one fight to mention, really, just the main event. Sergei Bohachuk, the Ukrainian fighter, now 22-1. Still never gone the distance in any of his fights. 22 KO wins, 1 KO loss. This time he was able to knock out in round 6 Nathaniel Gallimore. Gallimore now 22-7 with a draw. I think that's only the second time he's been stopped. It was for the WBC Continental America's Super Welterweight title. Gallimore stopped on his feet in that 6th round. Really good fight actually while it lasted. I managed to get a stream. It wasn't, televised over here, but it was just an all-out war. It really was. I had it 2-2 going into round 5, so it was a really close fight in the first 4 rounds. Both guys were throwing bombs. Bohachuk was landing some real vicious-looking uppercuts, but obviously Gallimore, been around the block, was able to take the shots, and very durable. He's been in there with a who's who of names at 154 and in and around those weights, and to actually get a stoppage against him is quite a rare thing to do. I think only the towering inferno Sebastian Fundora managed to do it. So for Bohachuk to get a scalp like this, on his slate by knockout was very impressive. But Gallimore really put it on Bohachuk as well in those first few rounds. But I guess the punching power of Bohachuk did end up getting to Gallimore. So a very important win for Bohachuk, because I think he's shown us something again there. I did say if he loses to Gallimore, which I thought was very possible, if he were to lose, we'd know where his ceiling is. But I think here he did impress. He really did, and it was a great win, probably one of his best wins he has. So it still makes for exciting fights, I think, down the line for him. Elsewhere, in another part of the USA, it was on Friday again. This one was at the Castleton Banquet and Conference Center in New Hampshire, USA. Over here, heavyweight Otto Wallin, now 25-1, a unanimous decision there over 8 rounds against Hellerman Olguin, who's now 9-5 with a draw. Didn't get the stoppage there, Otto Wallin, but nonetheless good to see him back out. And now moving to the Wembley Arena card that took place, of course, in London. It was live on BT Sport pay-per-view. I think it was, I'm going to guess, on ESPN in the States. Could be wrong. I'm going to come to you in a moment, Eddie, but my experience with this card was kind of wild. I was at home and I was going to go to a friend's house to watch the card. At their house. Then I had a last minute phone call. I want to say it was about 4:30, 5:30, and the card, I think, started on TV at 7, but obviously the doors open. The first fight started at, I guess, 5, 5:30, something like that. I get a phone call from Virgil Hunter, and he was obviously in town to be at the fight. Obviously, those that listen to the show will know he's a good friend of mine. And he called me and said, "Hey, we've got a spare ticket." So it was like a mad rush. I literally had to just throw on clothes. I had to get on 3 trains to get there. And it was like, it was just crazy. It was so stressful. I didn't get time to eat or anything. I just had to rush out the door. And I did end up getting there, on time. I didn't miss any any major fights on the undercard. But it was great to be there. Great to see Mike and spend time with him, of course, which I hadn't done in person for a long time. And just great to be at the fights with him. It's fantastic, for the fans as well to get to see him, take pictures with him and all the rest of it. But it was great to be at boxing again, especially for a card like this. I say a card like this, the card wasn't fantastic in terms of the undercard, but the main event, to be there for Anthony Yarde's marquee moment, his second attempt at a world title, felt right to me. I had to be there. Known Anthony Yarde for a long time. So yeah, it was great to be there for that. But without getting into the rest of that, we're going to start with the undercard. Tommy Fletcher with a win. I'm not sure if I said it on last week's show or not, but I had a little look. Tommy Fletcher, 6'7" cruiserweight, 3-0, 3 KOs, getting in with a 5'8" journeyman, 7 wins, 96 losses, 1 draw. Only been stopped 3 or 4 times in those 96 losses. And Tommy Fletcher, young guy, 3-0, 3 KOs. I thought, this is probably going to go the distance. Not many people actually stopped Daryl Sharp. And I noticed that Daryl Sharp had a fight lined up in a few weeks' time. So if he gets stopped, then he won't be getting that second payday. So I thought there's some smart money to put money on Tommy Fletcher for the points win. 2-1 it was, and that came flying in with ease. I was really happy about that one. So great stuff there for Tommy Fletcher, banking those 6 rounds there. Nearly a foot in height difference, something that I guess you've been close to, Eddie, in the past, being on that disadvantage end. But elsewhere on the undercard, Moses Itauma, the young 18-year-old heavyweight, hoping to break Mike Tyson's record of becoming the quickest heavyweight world champion, now 1-0. A knockout for him. I think it was in 14 seconds of the first round. His opponent, Marcel Bode, 2-1, now 2-2. Pretty much the first shot that got landed. He went straight down. I think he probably could have got up, but he didn't fancy it, and that was the end of that. It was over very quickly, but great to be at Moses Itauma's debut as well for myself, to see him in the ring from just a few meters away. It's great when you're at a top fighter's pro debut, someone that's tipped for massive things. It's great to say I was there, and I was there. Sean Noakes as well on the card with a knockout. He scored a knockout in round 5 against Santiago Garcia. Sean Noakes now 4-0. I was quite surprised to see that. Thought that one would probably go the distance, but Santiago Garcia, like I say, stopped there in the 5th round of a 6-rounder, now 4-13 with 3 draws. Wins as well for Joshua Frankham and Charles Frankham, both with wins there on points. Karol Itauma, the brother of Moses Itauma that I just spoke about, that heavyweight, 18 years of age. Karol Itauma, the brother, gets knocked out here by the Argentinian Ezekiel Maderna, now 29-10. Karol Itauma loses his O. It was a massive shock. He's now 9-1. It was for the vacant WBC International Light Heavyweight title. Terrible. I mean, Karol Itauma obviously was a huge favourite. I can't even tell you the numbers. He was that big of a favourite. No one expected this to happen. But I had a little look at Ezekiel Maderna. Obviously, he was much more, experienced as a pro and stuff like that. And I looked at some of the names and I thought, this is a fight I'm not really going to touch in terms of betting. I think deep down, I kind of thought Itauma would, of course, win, but I didn't think he would walk through this guy. I thought it was going to be maybe a points win for him, after quite a tough fight, as you always kind of get with these Argentinian fighters, that come over here. They seem to be tough guys, the Argentinians, the Mexicans, as we all know, but no, I wouldn't have predicted him to get knocked out in the fashion that he did get knocked out in that 5th round, down really heavy from a right hand to the head. I think he kept getting caught with that same shot as well, if I'm not mistaken, Itauma. Terrible stuff for him, especially as, he's just been knocked out there, and his brother was just about to make his debut, just a matter of moments later. What's that got to do to your mental state, seeing your brother get iced for the first time? But yeah, Karol Itauma needs to obviously bounce back from that, but it's a terrible look for him. He finds himself in a really difficult place, because it was his chance as well to pick up a regional title here, the WBC International, like I say, in the same division as the main event. Obviously, for Beterbiev's light heavyweight title. So this would have been a chance for him to perhaps get a world ranking with the WBC, and he'd be well in conversation, for a fight with one of those guys, the winner of the main event, in the near future. So yeah, he's screwed up there. So devastation for him. Obviously, all the best to him in his comeback. Elsewhere on the card as well was a bit of a kind of mad fight. No one really understood why it was even on the card, but we saw Artem Dalakian, now 22-0, a defense there of his WBA flyweight world title against David Jimenez, who's now 12-1. I can't say I saw most of this fight here. I was kind of going back and forth from my seat to like the bar area and back, and we were kind of back and forth all night. I didn't see tons of the undercard stuff, to be honest with you, but let's go straight to the main event now, Eddie. Artur Beterbiev now 19-0, Anthony Yarde now 23-3, a defense of Beterbiev's IBF, WBC, WBO light heavyweight titles. Yarde down in the 8th round, obviously got back up, and then his corner stopped the fight. I'm going to come to you first, because obviously I feel like you've got probably a lot to say on it. I'll give my 2 pence afterwards, but what did you make of it, Eddie? It was a very, very exciting fight, actually. Already people saying potential fight of the year.
Yeah, man. I was first thing I got to say is I was really impressed with Yarde. I thought he did an excellent job. If anyone says anything otherwise, I got something to say about it. I think that kid showed a tremendous heart and the ability to adjust a bit at times and try to box, but actually at times also come forward. I think it was a good mix. I think he showed a great deal in that fight. He's really world class for sure. I mean, there ain't no doubt about that. To be in there with a killer like Beterbiev and to be able to, kind of do what he did, sometimes coming forward, taking shots, giving shots, you know what I mean? Like taking one to give one sometimes. Might have been a little foolish at times, but he really got my respect. He did a hell of a job. The way, using the jab at times, just in general, man. I love just the whole performance. I thought was in a loss. I mean, I haven't seen him fight, many other guys. I've seen a Lyndon Arthur fight when he stopped him in the second one, but I don't know if that performance was as good as this one, especially when you think about the competition and who Beterbiev is. Man, it was really eye opening. He's got a future, you know what I mean? You got to stay away from some of those punches, but he's got a future in the division. I mean, he really looked awesome. He had Beterbiev in trouble at times. You know what I mean? I don't know if he was in like I'm about to be knocked out trouble, but he had him in trouble. He had the upper hand. You know what I mean? That fight was really, really good. You know what I mean? Hats off to both guys. Obviously Beterbiev, he's just a different kind of guy. It's going to be really hard to beat him, even at 38 years old. He's still a very difficult guy to deal with. I don't know what it's going to be if him and Bivol fight, but man, Beterbiev is going to be tough to get out of there. But I was really, really thoroughly impressed with Anthony Yarde and what he did and the effort he gave and trying to do everything he could to win the fight. Even getting dropped, trying to get back up and wanting to go on. But what I do respect what his corner did. They just saw like he's getting a little bit tired. You know what I mean? He slugged it out. He fought it out. He gutted it out the entire time. They just saw it going downhill maybe, through the next few rounds. I think it was, the 10th round, 9th or 10th round? Did I think he got stopped in? Joey, if I'm not mistaken? Oh, it was the 8th. Oh, wow. Well, no wonder. You know what I mean? Because I think, from 8, 9, 10, there's a good amount of rounds left for him to be in there with this killer that's just coming for blood after a while. So I respect what the corner did. Might have been a little premature in a sense, like not giving him a chance to get back. But in my heart of hearts, I understand why they did what they did. They just didn't see an end that was going to be pleasant after multiple rounds with this guy, not being able to keep him off. Because Beterbiev is not going to just sit on the back foot and bullshit around. He's going to keep coming forward. He's going to keep coming for the knockout. So if you start to show some weakness, start to get a little tired, it's best that they did what they did, because if he was started to get to the point where he couldn't defend himself like he should have, it would have probably got ugly. But all in all, I thought hell of a performance by that kid. You know, as great as Beterbiev did, and how he came back and he stopped him in the end. I really, really was thoroughly impressed with Anthony Yarde. And anytime he fights, I'm definitely going to be looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, and not to toot my own horn, but I remember when, we were discussing the fight on last week's show, I was saying that Artur Beterbiev, for me anyway, seems like he slipped just a little bit. Maybe not enough where he's going to lose the fight. Maybe not enough where he's not going to get another stoppage and maintain that 100% streak he's got going. But I felt that I had personally just identified a little bit of slippage there, and that maybe if this fight were to have happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it would be a lot harder of a fight for Anthony Yarde. And I think personally myself, I'm not sure if you agree with that, Eddie, but I think that the fight for me proved my point a little bit. Is that fair to say? Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. And that's why I said even at 38, showing that, he's still there. He's still very, very difficult, if not, I don't want to say impossible, but very difficult for anyone to beat, including Bivol. But yeah, 100%. It would be hard for me to believe it as good as Anthony Yarde shown in that fight, to believe that he would have been able to do that some years back when he was really fresh. Because, man, he was a killer. He still is a killer. I mean, he's a killer regardless. He's going to be that. But I think you hit it on the head. But you got to take your hat off to Anthony Yarde, no doubt about it. That kid really showed what he's made of for real.
Yeah, just my take on the fight. Round 1 I gave to Anthony Yarde. I felt both guys were getting off with left hooks that I didn't really think was a good idea, but I felt Yarde, had success with his one. So did Beterbiev, but again, I did give Yarde that round. Beterbiev, I think as well, kind of went into slow motion for a moment after one of the shots that Yarde landed. And yeah, like I say, Yarde was caught a lot as well, right on the temple, I felt, with Beterbiev's big, long left hook. But yeah, it was a cagey, opening round, I felt, and honestly, my heart was racing. Obviously, like I say, I know Anthony, known him for a long time. Haven't spoke to him for a long time, sadly. I'm not quite sure why we kind of drifted, but I've still obviously got a soft spot for Yarde, have done for years. Obviously, wished him the best in this fight. So yeah, for me, like my heart was racing. There was a lot of people standing on their seats, not just standing up, but actually standing on their seats. I was one of those guys standing on my seats. Not that there was anyone behind me, by the way, but I was just standing on my seat to see, in front of the people that were standing on their seats in front of me. Like, you had to stand on your seat to see it. And once you were standing on your seat, you almost couldn't sit back down. It was so exciting from the first bell. Round 2 I gave to Yarde as well. I did think, though, Beterbiev was kind of putting the pressure on Yarde mentally, and I think Yarde was falling for a lot of feints, falling for a lot of those feints. Coping well, coping better than maybe I thought he would have been with the pressure, with the mental pressure from Beterbiev. But yeah, like I said, I gave the round to Yarde. Again, I felt he might have stunned Beterbiev once or twice in the round, but Beterbiev's legs were so strong. Like, whenever he got caught with a shot and you go, oh, did his legs just stiffen a sec there? They'd be back to moving completely fine within about half a second. Like, he just... every time he got caught with a good shot, he'd circle around, do a circle around the ring. And he'd also do it when he clearly didn't take a big shot as well. So he kept kind of doing that, circling around. And it was, to me anyway, a bit confusing to know if he'd been hit with a good shot and is that why he's on his bike? Or was he just doing it regardless, whether he took a good shot or not, to confuse Yarde? Yarde as well was moving quite a lot in that second round, which I thought, oh no, this isn't good. We don't want to see him on his toes too much. Obviously, we're going to probably see him tire. Round 3, I gave to Beterbiev. I felt he was starting to close the gap. He was getting closer. Yarde as well was throwing singular shots as well at this point. The punch output had dropped a little bit. Beterbiev, I felt, was warming into the fight. I felt he possibly might have hurt Yarde as well with the last punch or two of the round. It was another left hook which Yarde looked open to the entire fight through those first 3 rounds. Round 4 I gave to Beterbiev as well. Like I say, it seemed like he was coming on a little bit strong, warming into the fight. I felt he hurt Yarde as well early on in the round, and he had Yarde stuck in the corner momentarily. Looked like, the end was near already, but Yarde did weather that storm and he came back. And I wondered if Beterbiev half let him off the hook, or maybe had genuinely punched himself out momentarily. I was a bit unsure of that one, but definitely a Beterbiev round. 2-2 I had it. Round 5 was a brilliant round. Honestly, could be round of the year so far. I gave it to Yarde just. I think he landed a fantastic flush shot on Beterbiev. Beterbiev did look quite hurt, but then he came back and hurt Yarde. But definitely, like I say, one of the best rounds of the year. Both men were just dishing out punishment and taking punishment. Even though we were 5 rounds in, and some people didn't predict it'd even go as far as 5 rounds, you knew already, even though there's only another 7 rounds to go, there's no way it's going the distance. Round 6 I gave to Yarde as well. Just trying to tally this up because I haven't actually tallied it up at all. I think I've got it 4-2 to Yarde through 6, which seems a little bit biased. Maybe it was. Round 7 I gave to Beterbiev. Again, both men were hurt. Yarde looked ready to go at one point for me. Yarde would take a great shot to the chin, look a bit stunned. Beterbiev as well would whip in a brutal body shot. Every time he landed a good shot on Yarde's chin and Yarde would look like he's in a bit of trouble, he'd just go straight downstairs with a brutal shot to the body, man. It was terrible, like proper breaking Yarde down to the body. Another round of the year candidate there in round 7, and I was already kind of thinking this could possibly be the best fight I've been at in person. It was a great fight through the first 7 rounds, and then of course, unfortunately for Yarde, round 8 was a miserable round. He was down, he got back up, he was very slow. I haven't watched the replay back or anything like that. Like I say, I've only seen it from being there in person, but when he went down, he got back up, he was very, very slow. Looked at his corner, he looked like he was in porridge. He was so slow. His body language, from what I could see, was awful. The referee was saying, because he kind of walked towards his corner when he got back up, and he walked back there as if it was the end of the round, like he had his back to the rest of the ring, and the referee's saying, turn around, you got to carry on here. And he kind of barely carried on, didn't he? Put his arms up to say, yep, I can protect myself, and kind of walk forward really slowly. Beterbiev, of course, knew Yarde was massively hurt, went in for the kill, landed 2 massive shots, and I felt that the KO's coming any second now. It's going to be brutal. Yarde is going to sleep here. And then that was when his trainer, Tunde Ajayi, friend of the show as well, stepped up on the top rope and stopped the fight. Anthony Yarde was angry initially. I don't know if he's changed his stance on that since then, but I felt straight away Tunde Ajayi, the trainer, was 100% right to stop the fight. Yeah, I think a brutal knockout was coming. And as you say, Eddie, we were in round 8 here, not round 11 or round 12. There was a long way to go still, and Beterbiev had really warmed into it by that point and didn't look like he was slowing down. Just last sentence on the fight, Eddie. Did you think that the corner made the right choice to stop the fight? I think you do.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I think as good as he was doing and as tough as he is, you got to protect him from himself. And I think his corner was smart, and it showed they really care, and they really know he got a future, and they didn't want to mess it up by putting him in there and trying to be too brave, in this scenario. So I'm happy to see they did that, and congratulations to the whole team. They got a good future.
Absolutely. We wish him all the best in the future, Anthony Yarde. But that brings part 1 to a close. The final thing for me to do is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former WBA Super-Lightweight World Champion. It is, of course, Mr. Mario Barrios. Mario, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thanks for having me again, man. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure having you on, Mario. It truly is. We last spoke in February of last year, so almost a year, man. The reason we haven't spoken is because, obviously, you haven't boxed since the Thurman fight. We did an interview, I think, in the build-up to the fight. We haven't spoken since, like I say, almost a year. Let me take you back briefly to that Thurman fight. We didn't know what Thurman had left. It turns out, I think he had a lot more than some people thought he had left. But just walk me through the fight if you can, Mario. Obviously, tough way to start your campaign at 147.
Yeah, we knew, Thurman was no easy fight. But we took the fight regardless, because like I said, I wanted to, test myself and test my abilities. And like I said, I mean, he proved, to still be a really tough contender. We went at it for the full 12 rounds. I fell short, but I still think, regardless of what happened in that fight, I still think it was a good move, for me and my team, to try and test myself right away. And I feel like I still have so much to accomplish and so much to show the boxing world.
And obviously, not many fighters would go straight from a Gervonta Tank Davis fight right in with Keith Thurman. Obviously, that was something a lot of guys wouldn't do, especially at the at the point of your career that you're in. In hindsight, obviously, it was very risky going in with Thurman, but it sounds like it's not a move that you regret.
No, it's, like I said, I mean, it's not a move that I regret at all. We fought. Like I said, we fought the full 12 rounds, and I mean, it was still a very competitive fight. And it's not a fight where I was just completely blown out. So I got to see right away, where I stood, competing, with the top level. And so I mean, we were able to take a lot from from that fight. And just after that fight, I took a couple of months off, just to rest, my mind and body. And yeah, I started training again. That hunger, it never left. That passion, for the sport. And I'm excited, to just be, ending this layoff that I have had.
And I was going to ask as well, Mario, what have you mainly been up to in that almost year out of the ring? I know obviously you've left Virgil Hunter. You're now with a new trainer. Tell me about that and what you've been up to with the rest of the 11 and a bit months off.
Yeah, right after that Thurman fight, I took 2 to 3 months off, from boxing, which is the most I've ever taken off. Just like I said, just to rest my mind, my body. I had 2, really, really competitive and really, really intense training camps, back to back, with the Tank and Thurman fight, and it felt nice to just, kind of reset. Me and Virg, I'm no longer working with him, but like I said, I'm very thankful, for everything, we had accomplished together, and everything, that he had, he had and a direct impact with, a direct, I can't think of the word, but I'm just so thankful, for Virgil and for all the years that I got to spend out there in the Bay Area. It's still all love, we still talk here and there. And but yeah, so I mean, I'm training in Vegas with Bob Santos, who's always been part of my team. He was the person who worked my head corner before Virgil, and even when I was working with Virgil, he was still involved in my corner. And I decided to make the move to Vegas because I believe these next few years, in my career are going to be the most important. I'm still using 27, still just reaching my prime. And, this is when, I'm looking, to make, an even bigger impact, than what I had these last few years.
Okay, no, it's good to hear that you and Virgil are still cool. Obviously, a lot of fighters leave their trainer on bad terms. It's good that that's not the case. Yeah, your next fight takes place February 11th in San Antonio, Texas at the Alamo Dome. You'll be boxing former Adrian Broner foe, Jovanie Santiago. If I remember correctly, he gave Broner a real close fight. What else do we know about Santiago, Mario?
Like how you said, he gave, Broner a really competitive fight. He's not somebody I'm taking lightly at all. And, I think, just him, one, just taking the fight against me, in San Antonio, I think that, that shows a lot on his part, that shows, he's coming, he's not coming all the way to San Antonio just to lay down, I know he's going to be ready. And, but it's just my job to go in there, be smarter, and execute my game plan and everything, that I had been working on, out here in Vegas.
And a win here against Santiago, Mario. What does this do for you? Is it just a fight to get you back to winning ways, to maybe brush off the cobwebs, as they say, just for you to be able to push on from?
Yeah, I think it's that, I think a win, just puts me, just gets me, another step closer, to fighting, the best in my division. And, but, more importantly, I'm just, looking forward, to ending, this layoff. I'm very excited, to be back in front of my hometown crowd. And, I'm just, I'm thankful, to Al Heyman, to PBC, my managers, just for, the opportunity again, to go out there and display my skills.
And despite being inactive, you've maintained a world ranking with the WBC. I think you're currently sitting at 10th. Will you be going down the WBC route, Mario?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah. We're gonna go any route that we can. To get as close, to a title shot. As quick as we can. That's the ultimate goal, is to win another world title.
And it looks like we might actually see Jovanie Tank Davis get in with Ryan Garcia. If it happens, how do you see it playing out, Mario?
I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. They're both very explosive. I am going to lean with Tank, probably, late in the later rounds. It's not a fight that I see going the distance, but it's a fight, I would lean, with Tank. We shared the ring for 11 rounds. I know what he's capable of, and he's a very, tricky and a very intelligent fighter. Along with his, very dangerous explosiveness.
Yeah, it's a great fight. Hopefully we do see it get made. Looks like it could be happening real soon. And just finally, my man, before we let you go, if you've got any closing words, Mario, like I say, almost a year we haven't had you on, but whenever I get you on, it really makes my day, makes my week. It's great always speaking with you. What's your closing message, my man?
I'm very, thankful for you, thankful for everybody else who, has continued to, support me, through my whole career, through this little break that I took. And, I'm looking forward, like I said, to just getting back, bringing, great fights, to the world of boxing. And, I'm just excited, everybody tune in February 11th.
Everybody tune in February 11th. Mario, as always, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. Best of luck for February 11th in San Antonio, back at home. And we'll speak afterwards, I'm sure.
Definitely, Joey. I appreciate you, my man.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. We're going to start here with this piece of news. April the 1st, Robeisy Ramirez gets in with friend of the show, Isaac Dogbe. That's going to be at featherweight, of course. It's going to be a really good fight, that. It's going to be at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Tulsa. On the undercard, we're going to see heavyweight prospect Jeremiah Milton. We're also going to see Xander Zayas as well on the card there. So again, that's on ESPN Plus, April the 1st in Tulsa. All the best, of course, to Isaac Dogbe in the away corner here. What else do we have? It's official. I saw them both in the ring when they did their first face-off, I believe it was. But yeah, Jake Paul and Tommy Fury, that one to go down February the 26th, which is actually a Sunday in Diriyah in Saudi Arabia. Crazy. I mean, I'm kind of excited for it, really, because I guess we're going to finally get to see the fight. But it's a circus, and Jake Paul has actually opened as the massive favorite in the fight. So the bookies do not see Tommy Fury winning that one, and especially not by knockout. I think Tommy Fury to win by knockout's about 6-1 or something crazy like that. So yeah, madness. What else do we have? Former world champion, friend of the show, good friend of the show, Brandon Figueroa. His next fight's been announced for March the 4th. He gets in with another former world champion, another friend of the show, the Philippines, Mr. Mark Magsayo. That one again, March the 4th, that one. And it takes place, where is it? It takes place I think in California, if I'm not mistaken. I should know, but yeah, I think it is in California. But on the undercard as well, Jarrett Hurd returns to action. It's good to see him back. He's been massively inactive, it seems like, in recent years. But yeah, great main event, I think, there between Mark Magsayo and Brandon Figueroa. Hopefully get one of the guys on the show before the fight. And then, yeah, just the final piece of news is that the heavyweight Justice Hooney from, I think he's from Australia, yeah, 7-0 with 4 KOs. He's just signed a promotional deal with Matchroom. That's been announced just a matter of hours ago, actually. So, yeah, that's the latest piece of news that we have for you, and the last piece of news that we have for you. So that is it for the news. Moving on now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start here with this one. It takes place later tonight at the Montreal Casino in Quebec, Canada. It's going to be on ESPN Plus over here. 2 fights to mention. Let's start with the undercard. Yves Ulysse Jr., 22-2 in a 10-rounder here against Gabriel Valenzuela, 25-3 with a draw. Like I say, over 10 rounds. Yves Ulysse Jr., a fighter that I was quite high on at one stage, I think when he beat Cletus Seldin years ago. But he lost a fight to, oh God, I forgot the guy's name. Don't want to go check it, but off the top of my head, the guy I think had been in there with Anthony Crolla from South America somewhere. Forgot the guy's name, but you know, he was quite old and he beat Yves Ulysse. It was a bit of a shock, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So since he lost to that guy there, I've kind of been a little bit skeptical actually on him since then. I've got to check the guy's name now because it's going to annoy me if I don't otherwise, but he lost to Ishmael Barroso, yeah. So like I say, obviously former opponent of Anthony Crolla. Anyway, the main event, all eyes to the main event for the NABF and NABA super middleweight titles. Over here, we've got the undefeated Eric Bazinian, who's 28-0. Eric Bazinian as well. You know, a fighter that's being spoken up, and there's a lot of hype around him as well. Obviously, you know, born in Europe but based these days in Canada. I think he was a fairly decent amateur if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, you know, as a pro, quite flawless, 28-0, 21 KOs. He gets in with friend of the show, one of my really top friends in boxing, really, Alontes Fox. Alontes Sly as a Fox, 28-3 with a draw. It's going to be tough for Fox, really, because obviously he's like a bit of a road warrior now, but his recent form hasn't been great, you know, getting stopped by David Morrell last time out, which, you know, was over a year ago now, so he's coming off 13 or 14 months of inactivity, and he got stopped against Morrell. He got battered in that fight, really. And I don't want to see that for Alontes Fox. Obviously 6'5", I think he is, really good boxer and stuff, but just unfortunately hasn't been able to show what he can do in you know, in the biggest fights of his career. And it's a fight, again, I think he could win, but it's a tough one, man. And like I say, he's not going to get any favours on the road. He's the away fighter. He's obviously not a puncher as well, which everyone knows, and he's going to have to box his backside off, really, to win this fight. So all the best to him, but it's a must-win fight. It honestly is. And even though he's a friend of mine, I've got to tell it straight. I've got to be honest. It's a last chance saloon, really. If you lose here to this guy, then I don't know where you go from here, man. So I wish him all the best. I hope he can win the fight, of course. Alontes Fox, all the best to him. So there's fights on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this week. And we're going to move now to Friday. This one also takes place on ESPN Plus, so there's boxing on ESPN Plus on Thursday and Friday. But yeah, let's talk about this card here. Let's start with the undercard first. It's a top-ranked show at the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona. Over here, Emiliano Vargas, 2-0, gets in with Francisco Duque, who's 1-1. That's over 4 rounds there. We've got Nico Ali Walsh, the grandson of course, Muhammad Ali, 7-0 in a 6-rounder here against Eduardo Ayala, who's 9-2 with a draw. We also have on the card the winner of the BoxHard Podcast Knockout of the Year 2022 award, Richard Torres Jr. 4-0, 4 KOs. He gets in with James Bryant, who's 6-2. Elsewhere on the card, a really good fight as well here for Arnold Barboza Jr. 27-0 in a real big step up here to world level in a 10-rounder against Jose Pedraza, who's 29-4 with a draw. Certainly on the slide now, Pedraza, but still has enough about him. He's a wily old fox. Still has enough about him to beat some top guys. Like I say, I think he's definitely been on the slide maybe the last year or two, and it could be the right time for Barboza to beat him. But, you know, both guys prime for prime. I'd definitely side with Pedraza, but I don't think we're going to see that on Friday night. But all the best to him. I've always been a big fan of Pedraza's. And the main event, Emmanuel Navarrete, 36-1. I think he goes for his third world title in 3 different weight classes, if I'm not mistaken. He's up here at super featherweight. I remember him beating Isaac Dogbe at super bantam. So yeah, I think he went from super bantam to feather. Now he's up at super feather. He fights for the vacant WBO title, a title vacated, I think it was by Shakur Stevenson. He gets in with Australia's very own Liam Wilson, 11-1. The one loss he avenged. I think it was to Joe Noine. But to be totally honest, I don't know tons about Liam Wilson. It was a guy that I was having a little look at because at one point he was going to be fighting friend of the show, friend of mine, Archie Sharp. That fight obviously fell through. They were going to be fighting in a final eliminator to fight the winner of Navarrete and Oscar Valdez. Valdez pulled out the fight. Navarrete was without an opponent, and Liam Wilson left Archie Sharp without an opponent to take on Navarrete straight for the title. So he skipped the Archie Sharp fight. He gets a crack at a world title. Can't blame him. Excellent managerial move from his team. But he does jump in with Emmanuel Navarrete, who is, for me, one of the best fighters, really. I don't think he's creeping into anyone's top 10 pound-for-pound list, but certainly gives everyone a nightmare of a fight, and he's just cruising through the weights without much of an issue. I don't know where we're going to see him end up at the end of his career, at what weight, I do not know, but Liam Wilson's a big boy actually for super featherweight, so that could be interesting. But Navarrete, just being that relentless Mexican madman that he is, I think he will get to Wilson. If I had to be pushed for a prediction, I'd say probably stops Wilson late, but I think he wins the fight, Navarrete. I don't think there's any danger of Wilson, you know, stunning him, shocking him, upsetting him. But it's a case for me of if we're going to see Navarrete get the stoppage or go to points, I'd lean towards the stoppage, like I say. I think that's what the bookies expect as well. But it should be a good fight. I do enjoy watching Navarrete fight. All the best to Liam Wilson. I mean, he'd shock the world if he can win. Good luck to him. Got nothing against him. Moving out now to this one that takes place on Saturday. We're now at the final 2 cards. This one takes place at the Loom Color Phoenix Center in Ontario, California. I think that's pronounced properly. But over here, friend of the show, Ernesto Mercado, 8-0 with 8 KOs. I think he's got 7 of the 8 KOs within the first 2 rounds. He's that amazing amateur who was like a 22-time national champion or whatever he was. I think his record as an amateur was about 290-10. He's been on the show. He was supposed to be taking on Hank Lundy on this date here, but obviously Hank pulled out the fight. Momentarily had the Broner fight pinned down, but then didn't end up getting that fight either. But anyway, back to Ernesto Mercado. He steps in with the late replacement opponent, Jose Angulo, who's 14-4. It's for the NABA USA Super-Lightweight title. All the best to Mercado. I don't think he's going to have much of an issue here. Probably be 9-0 with 9 KOs by this time next week. And the main event of... I'm not sure where I was going with that one, but I was going to move to the next card. It takes place at the Madison Square Garden Theatre, the mecca of boxing in New York, USA. Let's start with the undercard. We've got the UK's very own Ramla Ali, the Muslim female fighter, 7-0. It's for the vacant IBF Intercontinental Super Bantamweight title over 10 2-minute rounds against Avril Maffei, who is 8-0 with a draw, so somebody's O must go there. Elsewhere on the card, good fight here as well between Shadacia Green, I could be saying that wrong, 11-0, and Ellen Cederroos, who's 8-1. I think a former world champion or maybe a former world title challenger, Cederroos. I believe she was on that card that I was at with you, if I'm not mistaken, Eddie. You wouldn't remember, but I think she boxed on that Shields Habazin undercard, if I'm not mistaken. But she's having a fight here against Green for the WBC Silver Super Middleweight title over 10 2-minute rounds. We've also got Sky Nicholson, friend of the show, obviously from Australia, 5-0. She gets in with Tanya Alvarez, who's 7-0. Again, somebody's must go. These ladies on this card being very well matched. It seems like we're going to see some good female fights here. It's for the vacant WBC Silver Featherweight title. I really like the fact that they're showcasing women's boxing again on a big card like this, and all the fights seem to be real closely matched. We've also got Alicia Baumgardner as well, 13-1, defending her titles. I'm not sure, I can't remember if she's undisputed or not, but anyway, she gets in with Elam McKhaled, who is 15-1. It's for the IBF, IBO, WBA, WBC, and WBO Super Featherweight World titles. I think the WBA is vacant, but yeah, this is literally for all the marbles. It's an undisputed fight. I think McKhaled may hold one of the titles, but it doesn't really matter. It's over 10 2-minute rounds. It's going to be good to see Baumgardner out again, coming off that controversial points win against Michaela Mayer. And the main event, it almost seems mad to say there's a male fight on this card, but it's a good male fight as well. Very evenly matched fight in terms of the two guys on paper. We're going to see Richardson Hitchens, 15-0, get in with John Bowser, who's 17-0. That's over 10 rounds there at super lightweight for the IBF North American and WBC United States titles. And then the main event, Amanda Serrano de Puerto Rico, Eddie, 43-2 with a draw, gets in with Erica Cruz, who's 15-1. Again, it's for all the marbles, the IBF, the IBO, the WBA, the WBC, and the WBO featherweight female world titles over 10 2-minute rounds. Always fantastic to see Amanda Serrano have a fight. I've been a massive fan of hers for years. It looks like we're going to see the Katie Taylor rematch perhaps, and that's certainly something in the distance for her. She actually came out this week and just sent an apologizing tweet to her opponent here, Erica Cruz, and just said, look, I'm not overlooking you. There's a lot of talk about myself and Katie Taylor, but it's meant, in a respectful way. I'm not overlooking you whatsoever. And just really a tweet to kind of put out to let the world know that she's not disrespectfully dismissing her opponent here. She rates her. It's a test. It's a challenge. And of course, anything can happen in that ring. So yeah, Amanda Serrano, there's not much more to say. She is the star of the show, rightfully so, a hell of a fighter, and I cannot wait to see her box once again, like I say. But that's about it though for the preview part of the show. I don't think Eddie's had to say anything in part 2 there, but in part 1 we did the review part, then we welcomed our special guest. In part 2 we did the news. There was quite a bit of news to go over, and then in the very end there of part 2 we did the preview part. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 381 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to this week's special guest, the former WBA Super-Lightweight World Champion, Mr. Mario Barrios. Really good guy he is, as I'm sure you all know. Good luck to him in his fight coming up in just 9 days now. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. There has been one piece of news break whilst we've been recording the show, and it's that the juggernaut, Mr. Joe Joyce, will be back in action. He gets in with Zili Zhang of China, the 6'6" southpaw Chinese heavyweight. That one to go down at the Copperbox Arena in London, of course, on April 15th. So do not blink. I think Joe Joyce wins that one easy. That's a terrible style matchup, I think, there for Zhang. But should be exciting. Always good to see Joe Joyce fight, of course, and it's another step in the right direction for him. But that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we'll see you all again next week.